Good evening, everyone. If you hear thunder and lightning on the outside, we have a thunderstorm here in Port Elizabeth, and that is since 4 o'clock already. I wanted to start earlier, but the the lightning was very bad. But we still have it outside. But thank God for the rain. We needed it so much. We actually going through a drought for the last 5 years in Port Elizabeth. Amen. What I want to say is that, and that's to the viewers, please say something. Very few people make comments on the videos. I like to communicate with people. I love just chatting to people as well. I'm a people's person. So please say hi. Please, even if you don't say no, I don't agree with it, that is fine. But just say something. That is the first thing that I want to say. Secondly, the feast days, Passover is coming up, October the 15th. So that is very important. God's feast leads up to the ultimate feast, the wedding feast of the Lamb. And that is where we need to prepare again. So I will have a lot of videos now in the beginning of April concerning Passover and the feast. So look out for those postings and do prepare for that. It's very essential. Now, the Christian, and I'm saying it correctly, the Christian Easter is also on that day, the beginning of Passover, but that is not Passover. You cannot mix Easter and pickle fish and hot cross buns with Passover, please. Please go and read Leviticus 23, verse 4, about Passover, how you should do it. Yeah, so thank you. I do not want to offend anybody, and I am shadow banned on YouTube and Facebook, and the view count dropped dramatically, and that is of course because that's Facebook and YouTube. They escalated it just for the first 8 hours of my videos, and normally used to be about 48 hours, but I just show it the first 12 hours, and then I hardly see anybody anymore. But people need to go straight to my channel and go see it there, see the videos there. And also please check on the community posts. That's very important. I also write on the community posts, and that count is also very low. 4 people, that is tremendously bad out of 6,000 subscribers. So please do subscribe and like the video and share. Thank you. Tonight's subject is the globalists and the banksters are celebrating the Great Reset, the super Shemitah of 2022-2023. We are exactly 7 months away from that, people. 7 months away from seeing Jesus in the clouds. Why do I use Trump as the in the picture? He likes to say, to Kim, you remember Kim of North Korea? He said to Kim, I got a bigger button than your button. Yeah, I got a bigger back button. And you won't believe who is resetting the economy. This man is a great financier. He knows the banking system. He understands it very well. And he is still in power, people. Biden is just there as a puppet. And that's it. If he's not a clown, clone, by the way. So not to make it obvious to everyone, they choose a candidate from Obama's time. Now, most people think it's Obama behind it. Yes, both of them are. Both of them are pulling the rein. I'm telling you, this is not going anywhere. He is still ruling behind the scenes. Okay, so the Great Reset, and that is coming, people. And I keep on saying that this war and the pandemic is part of the Great Reset. Yes, the globalists and banksters are celebrating the Great Reset, the Super Shemitah of 2022-23. Now, I just mentioned to you already about the Super Shemitah and the Shemitah cycles. What is a Shemitah? Just to be short, Shemitah is the Hebrew name for the Sabbath, the sabbatical 7, Leviticus 25. God operates in 7 years. Now we're currently in a 7th year cycle. That is what we are. The land need to rest. The land need to rest. I was going to make me a garden outside, plant vegetables, for the food shortages. And then I thought, no, God said the land must rest. So rather want to be obedient and do what God says. God will provide for the vegetables, and He does, in a supernatural way. Yeah, so we need to be obedient to God's word. We are in the 7th sabbatical year, and that will end October 2022, not in September. Feast of Trumpets is not in September, and for the reason for that, if I may say that, count the first moon is observed now in April. The first new moon is in April. So you count from the first new moon, it's April, May, June, July, August, September, October. That is 7 months. Yes, yeah. So the New World Order banksters and the banksters have essentially owned and operated planet Earth over the millennia. And that is a fact, without you knowing it. On September 15th of 2008, Lehman Brothers, one of the largest global financial services firm, founded in 1847, collapsed by the way of a perfectly controlled demolition stealthily executed by the International Bank's headquarters. By the end of 2008, Lehman Brothers Holdings Inc. had vanished from the investment banking land, the largest corporate bankruptcy filing with 619 billion, not million, billion in debt in the U.S. history. And I tell you, they made that up. That personal debt, they made it up with which through the ratepayers' money. After that colossal fiscal fiasco, the USA government proceeded to provide the biggest bailouts to the largest banks and predatory corporations throughout the USA. Bailouts. And they got large sum of bailouts. Well, the bailouts, of course, came from your money. In essence, the billions upon billions that were stolen from the American taxpayers were given to the bankers, controlled corporations, insurance companies, mortgage lenders, and majority financial institutions. Wow. In other words, the Shemitah that occurred in 2008, as well as those that occurred in 2015, the Chinese stock market crash and the Greek default, and 2001, 9/11 stock market crash, the 94 Mexican peso crisis, the 1987 Black Monday stock market crash, the 1980 Great Recession of the 1980s began, and 1993 global oil crisis of 1973 were all carried out by the banksters to unload their massive debt and countless liabilities on the taxpayers in those various nations around the world that were victimized by this economy devastating practices. Why they do it? They know that God still operates the Shemitahs, or the seventh Jubilee cycles every year, 7 years. And God punished America and the world by dropping those, and the dollar just crashed every 7 years. And they do know it. But before that happens, they help themselves out. They're robbing you of your taxpayers' money. And that is what they do. Let's face it, people. The international banksters are only out to enrich themselves and their clandestine criminal conspirators. The COVID pandemic, pandemic, by the way, and this war of Ukraine and Russia only enriched the New World Order globalists and banksters. Like Russia, for instance. Russia oil, their supply is only 7%. And here you find yourself with a high increase in gas prices, fuel. Now in April, ours in South Africa will go up by another R2.62, and that will take us to 23 Rand, people, 23 Rand per liter of fuel. And if you think Americans, you you're actually paying more than what we do. Yours is almost 5 Rand, 4 Rand, 40 cents, something to that effect. If you count 10 times 40, which is 40 Rand, to the value of the Rand, it's about 15 Rand to the dollar. It actually decreases now 14 Rand to the dollar. Yeah, then you actually pay almost 50 to 60 Rand per dollar in our money. And we currently will pay 23 Rand per liter of fuel. Now, why does it do that? They enrich themselves, taking your money to what's his name, all that debt that they accumulate in those 7 years. And they do it every year. That is what they're doing. If you take the Iraqi war, I remember the Iraq wars in the 90s. When was the Iraqi wars? It was. You know what? The fuel dropped. I think at that time it was about $60 dollars per barrel. That dropped right down to $20 a barrel of oil. I was so glad because the fuel prices went down and I could ride a car again. But soon as the war was over, it skyrocketed again. Now you tell me now, why would they do that? Why the increase? It's all a conspiracy. It's a whole set up, people. That is what is behind the scene. Now here is the Shemitah. The Shemitah was a 7-year custom given by God, Leviticus 25. Please read Leviticus 25. I did this also in previous videos. I'll attach those videos for your learning and for your information. So please do go watch it. And this was put into practice by the Hebrew communities, which had explicit purpose of forgiving all the debts that accumulated during the previous 7 years. Now, interesting, in the global agenda, the New World Agenda, they're going to bring in the one world currency, and where it's going to start the banking, that will be cashless, people. It will start with Australia and New Zealand. They're the guinea pigs. And what they're going to do, they're going to write off your debt. I'm waiting to see that coming, and that's just one of the plans. Listen, COVID hasn't gone away. It is still behind the scenes, and they're going to still force those issues. Here in South Africa, I heard, sorry, I'm diverting a little bit, that it will be mandatory by July. I read it on an article. They are still in the process to make that law, change that law, and to make it mandatory. So that is coming for sure. And even China said, I read that South Africa's rand is going to fall, will be no more. So I don't know which currency will they use. You can debate that. I have no clue which, maybe the Chinese yuan that they're going to use. So we'll have to wait and see. So that is all in the pipeline. So in this way, all members of the community, that is of course now the Shemitah, all in this way, all members of the community were regularly relieved of their indebtedness so they could start fresh. And then the whole community rejuvenated financially. And this was God's plan from the very beginning. Now, God reset his economy every 7 years, and the land need to rest. He give in a 6 year, he give you three years your supply. Now, for instance, when Israel was in a desert, on the 6th day, they take twice the amount of manna. Any other day that manna would rot, but not on the 6th day, so that people need to rest on the 7th day. And they cooked food enough for the 7th day. Yes, and that was God's plan all the time. But we don't practice that today, and really in reality. But God sees it still as part of his word. And that is why he judged America every 7 years, and the dollar will fall. Now the 7 year Shemitah cycles and jubilees have been proven beyond any doubt to directly correlate with precision to many of the major world events of the past 200 years. And it happened every 7th year. Do you know when it happened? On Feast of Trumpets, even on the last day of Elul, the 29th of Elul, that is when it occurs. Yes. Now the Super Shemitah of 2022, now given the established timeline of every previous Shemitah, some call it Shemitah, I just call it the Shemitah calamity, going back to the beginning of the 20th century, it is clear that the upcoming Shemitah of October 27, 2022 is actually the Super Shemitah. Why do I say it is? Again, I mentioned it in the beginning, October. September is not the biblical feast day for Feast of Trumpets. As I say, you count from April, you count 1st of April with a new moon, you count 7 months forward, and it doesn't arrive at September, it arrives at October. And that is how God counts it. Yes, and that will be a super Shemitah, and it will be the Shemitah of all Shemitas. Now back then in 2015, Jonathan Kahn, he thought that 2015 will be the Shemitah of all Shemitas. And he thought that's a time that the rapture would occur, but of course it did not. Yes, that is the time when he thought it will happen. Now, which is exactly why the upcoming Super Shemitah will be the one to end all Shemitas. Yeah, and then the final 7 years of God's wrath, Jacob's trouble, will begin then on October 27th, the Feast of Trumpets, which is also why the powers that be are secretly and conspicuously setting up the Great Reset. And that is what they are doing behind the scenes. First of all, as I said, the pandemic, and that's the way to reset it. Who is benefiting of that? Only Pfizer. Yeah, Johnson & Johnson. These are the guys that just benefit from me. And if you go into history, they are bankers as well. I'm serious, people. They benefit of that. This war with the oil prices is only the bankers and the global New World Order globalists that benefits from it. Now here is the key point, and I will end with that. The Super Shemitah of 2022, 2023 is the final Shemitah of an era that occurs after the last Shemitah Jubilee. That wasn't a Shemitah Jubilee, of course. Many people think that was a Jubilee, but it wasn't a Shemitah. That I should actually take out there. I made a mistake there. The last Shemitah that took place, that was the last Shemitah. The final Jubilee, of course, is, that's what many people thought. And that's why I put that word in there, to remind myself about it. And the final Shemitah will actually begin, what's his name, at 2029, 2030. That will be the final Shemitah. And now the globalist, New World Order globalists from 2021 to 2030 makes sense, because they know precisely when everything will end. Yeah. Jesus will return in 2029, and he will declare the 120th Jubilee and Feast of Atonement. We're coming to that in a minute. Now, Joseph dreamed the 7 fat cows and the 7 good years. That's the 7 good years. Ends this coming October 26. That's when it ends. That, of course, is Elul 29. And the 7 linear cows, the 7 bad years, or 7, if you put the 7 bad years, that 7 bad years is God's wrath. So many people will say, yes, God's wrath will only be 3.5 years. No. It is 7 years, people. God always operates in 7 years. Although that's 7 years, that 7 years will be shortened, as Jesus has said. And so in actual fact, the 7 years will then actually only be 2 years. 2 years, 5 years in total, because he shortened the day by from 24 hours to 16 hours a day. That's correct. So the last 7 lean years, the 7 bad years, or the 7 years of the wrath of God begins October 27, the 1st of Tishri. Many people put it, and I did it also in the past, by speaking of the tribulation, because the Bible does mention that tribulation, but it's actually God's wrath. And the whole 7 years is God's wrath. And only the 7 trumpet judgment and the 7 bowl judgment is part of it. Yes. These, the four horsemen is not part of God's wrath. It's happening now. It's happening pre-tribulation. That's what it now. It happened here, not now pre-God's, pre-wrath, not pre-tribulation. It's happening now. We are in tribulation, in times of sorrows, but we are not into God's wrath. If you had to understand that. So this is the where I will end it. So please do subscribe. Please do share this video. Please like it, and please do make a comment. Thank you for those who support this ministry. Really appreciate your prayer and your gifts. Thank you so much.